let's get to Mark Sanchez and the winding turns of this very scary and unfortunate story that started late Friday night into Saturday morning in Indianapolis, where Mark Sanchez was to broadcast the Colts-Raiders game for Fox Sports. Of course, he is a game analyst over there, has been somewhat of a rising star on their roster. Got a digital show that was airing on FS1 as recently as last month, and popular guy, recognizable quarterback, all of that sort of stuff. And his career appears to be off of the rails due to some decisions that he made Friday night, where, according to local police reports that we've seen from news stations out there, that mostly the account of a witness and the victim, Sanchez approached a delivery truck and became physical with the driver, a man who was quite a bit older than Mark Sanchez, and routine type of day-to-day thing that he does at this luxury hotel. I think like replacing the fry grease for the kitchen or something like that was how I saw it. And one thing led to another. We don't obviously have every single detail here, but allegedly Sanchez became physical with the man, threw him to the ground, was sort of, beating him up basically, and the man tried pepper spray. Sanchez didn't stop. The man then stabbed Sanchez repeatedly. And we've seen photos of the victim now, the elderly man that Sanchez approached and became physical with. It's pretty gruesome and ugly. Sanchez was arrested at the hospital. His charges have since, 3 charges, one of them has since been upgraded to a felony battery charge, Ben, which would be, if he were to, go through the legal process, could be up to 1 to 6 years in prison. Pretty insane. I think that there's a media coverage angle that I want to hit here, but just in general, one of the craziest stories we've had in sports media in 2025, and 2 people who were seriously wounded because of seemingly, allegedly, decisions that Sanchez made inebriated late night in Indianapolis for work.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things you'll definitely remember, for years now following, and obviously there are going to be ramifications for Mark Sanchez's career. I agree. I think he was a rising star as a NFL analyst, and you get, the first push alert, which I'm sure is how most of us consume this, or you saw it on Twitter, and it's Mark Sanchez stabbed in critical condition, and your mind immediately goes to like, oh my God, I hope he's okay. And obviously everyone hoped he was okay. And, there was the report from Adam Schefter that it was the result of a robbery. And so, it's pretty easy to piece together a narrative there as to what might've happened. And then it comes out like 2 hours later, like, oh, Mark Sanchez has been charged, and he, more details come out, and it, the narrative starts to really shift, and you start to, I don't even know if like the narrative came out until Sunday about like what happened, like the play-by-play of it, but just like what the charges were, it was pretty easy to piece together. Like this seemed like a self-defense type of incident. And so,
Ricky Pearsall, we've seen a lot of things like this. There's athletes more and more that's been, whose homes have been getting robbed. Like you started to assume that's where this story was headed. And then all of a sudden he's got handcuffs. I mean, I don't know this, at a hospital bed, and you're just like, holy shit.
Yeah. And I think like, probably, again, like this is all right now, it's still relatively early in the story and all of that, but the fact that Mark Sanchez got stabbed and was then arrested so quickly, and then you see the footage, the pictures of the alleged victim, and it becomes clear, like you would think if somebody gets stabbed, both people are going to get arrested and they'll sort it out and go from there. The fact that the victim was never like arrested or charged, like it seemed pretty clear that the police were able to piece together pretty instantly this was a self-defense thing. And looking at the pictures, it's pretty easy to put that together. So it's, again, still early, still allegedly, still all that, but like it's pretty easy to connect the dots on this one, and it does not look good for Mark Sanchez in multiple ways.
Yeah, and to, I guess, tie up the news of it and give the account of what we know so far. Sanchez, in the police report, allegedly told police officers that he doesn't remember anything after he first approached the vehicle before any of the violence ensued. He supposedly ran off after originally, the stab wound and, I guess probably the pain, and snapped him out of whatever state he was in. I don't know. And then he was treated at a hospital and obviously, like we said, later arrested. Fox took him off the game, of course. His health wouldn't have allowed it even if the arrest hadn't happened. Brady Quinn filled in for him, and Fox has, basically acknowledged the incident, and on a couple of different shows just gave a typical, wishing the best to the victim and to Mark, and we'll update as we can type of thing. So that's where we leave it. And of course there will be updates. I think Sanchez has been discharged from the hospital now and is in jail, and the man who the victim is actually seeming to be still recovering, which shows you, the severity there too. But so you talked about the Schefter side of this, Ben, and I wrote about that for the newsletter because, I'm not on the ground in Indy and I'm not any sort of investigative reporter, so I didn't have anything new to add to the situation, but I was legitimately baffled by the way that ESPN's NFL Insider handled this story. And I'll even say, maybe this is affected by hindsight a little, I woke up to seeing, if I'm remembering correctly, an ESPN push notification from Schefter, which is common now because I've signed up for those through the app, about this thing. And I was like, it's a little odd that Schefter would cover this at all. And so for the newsletter, I went back and looked. Ian Rappaport's coverage, to the extent that he did any of this, was retweeting the Fox statement and then the local police statement, and that's it. Jordan Schultz, I was like, well, he can do whatever he wants. He doesn't work for anybody. He's independent now. He just runs social media accounts and he gets, juicy stuff when he can. Surely he must have tried to get some engagement out of this one. Nope, nothing. And yet Schefter, like you mentioned, calls this a robbery originally. Our Matt Yoder tried to dig around when he wrote about the Schefter side of this and couldn't find anyone else firsthand calling it that. Schefter gets hit with a community note on X, and yet the tweet stays up for hours, and almost by the time it gets deleted, as much as a full day before he eventually just deletes it without acknowledgement and, carries on as normal. It's like we were past the point of this being a trend with Adam Schefter, where especially breaking news that's related to criminal activity, legal activity, violent incidents, whatever you want to call it, he just seems woefully not up to the task. Like, I hate to say that. Adam Schefter's had a great career. He does a lot of things that, you could easily respect. Like, this is just really bad, and it's a constant black mark for ESPN almost every time we have an incident like this.
Yeah, and it wasn't, if I'm right about this, which I'm pretty sure I am, he didn't delete the tweet until Brian Curtis at the Ringer called it out. And I don't know if that timing was
and the community note and Curtis, a lot of people were piling on, and then he finally just deleted it. But he didn't issue a, hey, I've deleted a tweet, I misspoke, it just the deleted, and then you move on.
Yeah, and I don't, did he get fed bad information? Did he make assumptions and connect dots that weren't there? Like, I don't know what happened. I know, probably the sexy conspiracy would be Mark Sanchez's agent fed it to him to try to shift the narrative, or I just don't know. Okay, you're going to shift the narrative for 2 hours and then the real story is going to come out and everybody's going to look like an idiot. I don't know.
Which is the same thing we saw that we kind of dug up as we were looking back on Schefter's history with this stuff. That's what he did with the Dalvin Cook. I don't remember if it was a lawsuit or if it was an actual arrest at the original point, but he cited Cook's agent in the breaking news tweet and then called it extortion. So, I don't think you're stepping over a line to wonder if that similar trajectory is kind of how he ended up with that information this time. It's crazy because, if an insider should be able to do anything, this is the stuff that matters.
It is, but it's also Mark Sanchez is a Fox analyst. Mark Sanchez isn't the New York Jets starting quarterback. Like Schefter could just sit this one out. He doesn't.
Which is why I said I was like, it's a little weird that he's even talking about this, and like why I point out that Rappaport, for instance, didn't.
Right. He's inserting himself into a story like that. If he sat it out, I don't think his bosses at ESPN would be like, "Hey, Adam, what do you have on the Mark Sanchez stabbing?" Like maybe they would ask him, and maybe he would say, "I have nothing," and they would say, "Okay, like that's fine. This isn't really our story." So I don't know. Like it's
a story that's being covered everywhere else. So I do just sort of wonder, like with a lot of these things, with the Cook incident or some of those things, you kind of have to think like that's currying favor, right?
Yeah.
That would probably be that. But for something like this, it's like is the only point just to get engagement? And if so, like that's disgusting. Like it's just there's no other really way to put that. If you're weighing into a thing where a dude was brutally beat up and Sanchez is in a hospital bed with stab wounds and the police are at work trying to figure it out, what else? Like if you're wading into those waters just to get some clicks, like it's insane. You make unseemly amounts of money. Why do you need to do that?
I don't know. It's very bizarre. I agree. This becomes a black mark for ESPN. It's an NFL Sunday, and this is what people are talking about. Like people are talking about this during the slate of games. That's when all this went down with Brian Curtis calling it out in the community notes, and ultimately Schefter then deleting it. Like it's weird that it happened, and it's weird that there's no contrition, there's no retraction, there's no apology. There's like real effects to this stuff too. Like it's a big negative initially for Indianapolis. And I think that like we talk about this but there are some people out there who probably just still think Mark Sanchez was stabbed like in a robbery. Like sometimes the initial story for people, that's the only thing that ever gets out. And maybe that's ultimately the goal with this kind of stuff. I don't know. It's bizarre.
Well, I think that, I did see a tweet on my For You page where you just end up in these random territories that you're not expecting, where there is like a little bit of criticism of like Indianapolis and, crime and whatever that's kind of picked up in, I would say, more right-wing commentary circles. I pointed out in the newsletter, just to give a sampling, that some guy, some ex-influencer account, whatever, aggregator type person with like 2.6 million followers posted this, and his tweet was still up as of Sunday night when I looked into it. There was a Cincinnati local news station that ran with Schefter's account of things. Like, you are seen, if you are Adam Schefter, as the go-to source of information on all things NFL, all things football. So when you put something out, some intern at a local news station isn't gonna, that's the news as far as they're concerned, and so
it's the record.
It's awful. Yeah, it's the record. And it's like, it's one thing to get it wrong. That's going to happen, especially if you choose to cover things that are so obscure relative to your normal area of coverage. But to not have any sort of pattern, or I guess process, I should say, in place to, like, it sounds so quaint. I know we're so past this, but like, this is the type of thing that like an ombudsman is supposed to be for. ESPN used to have one of those, or any sort of oversight or anything that goes on. Like I pointed out in the article, like Schefter, it's not so far different from the meth streams or whatever it was link that he shared, or like these weird video accounts that he's like reposting from now. Like, what the hell is going on with Adam Schefter's Twitter feed over the past couple years? And it's funny when it's those things, but then when it's this, it's like, is he just running his own little shop? Like, does he have a boss? Like, who is Adam Schefter accountable to, where he can just leave information up like this? And Joe Schmo in Cincinnati now thinks Mark Sanchez was a victim of out-of-control crime in Indianapolis. Like, this stuff does happen. This is how it kind of plays out.
Yeah, I just looked it up. Mark Sanchez does have a very prominent NFL agent with a lot of clients in the league right now, for whatever that is worth. He is with Athletes First, which is David Mugaletta's company, which reps like all of the most high-profile clients. So not for nothing, Mark Sanchez has a very prominent NFL agent still.
And yet somehow all of the other insiders resisted the temptation to get in good with Athletes First and did the more responsible thing. So it is in fact possible.